Alanthea Publishing is proud to present M1-The Black Key, written by Stacey Morrison, narrated by Nicholas Bolton. May 2nd, 985 ME. The beginning of the rebellion. Passages. Peter and Josiah. He was not supposed to be in the passageways, but 7-year-old Prince Peter ben Korah never did anything anyone told him. Well, almost anyone. But his father did not know about these places, and Peter was never going to tell him. His mother knew, but she kept it a secret. So it was risky showing Josiah, but he thought about it for a long time and decided it was the right thing to do. He crept through the narrow, dark spaces wearing his pajamas, off to what he dubbed their first Prince's Council. It was late, and the palace was in mourning, as everyone kept reminding him for 2 days. Mourning. Everyone in black, weeping. It was terrible. He was sad Uncle Eamonn died, but the biggest impact on him seemed to be that it made everyone mean. Even the servants, who normally thought he was delightful, told him to be quiet. They refused to smile when he tried to charm them, and no one laughed at his jokes. His nanny, Auntie G, even swatted his butt when he refused to wear that hideous court costume with the itchy lace cuffs. "You do not have a choice. It is required," she croaked and started sobbing again. She stuffed him in that hot velvet suit and plunked him into a receiving line, which were the dumbest things ever, and being royal, Peter was forced to stand in all the time. It was torture, being still for hours, bowing every 10 seconds until he was dizzy. Receiving lines were full of old people with bad breath, who said things like they were going to put a brick on his head because he was growing too fast. That was stupid. Even Peter knew a brick would not stop him from growing. He bet most of those people in that receiving line did not even know Uncle Eamonn. They were just making a big deal about it. To his way of thinking, the only person who had a right to be upset was Josiah. His father died. Peter's father pretended to be sad, but Peter could tell he was faking it. Mother said he pretended a lot, and she was right. Peter felt a little guilty that he was not crying and carrying on like everybody else. In truth, he did not really know his uncle. Ruling princes are busy, and Uncle Eamonn did not have time for little boys. His father certainly did not, but that was not necessarily a bad thing. Josiah did not have time for him either, even though Peter tried really hard to get his attention. Though Josiah was not around much anymore. He went off to the Royal Military Academy and left Peter alone with Mr. Ben Merriweather. Secretly, he idolized Josiah, who at 15 was already taller than everybody else in the family. Standing in that dreadful line today with nothing else to do, Peter noticed Josiah had grown whiskers, just like a man. Josiah was also much better at being a royal than Peter. A good thing, because Josiah was now the ruling prince, something Peter never wanted to be. Sometimes, like on holidays when it was just family, his cousin would spend time with him. But Josiah was older and got to do things Peter was too little for. He hated when adults said that. It was not fair. However, tonight, he had a secret, and it was a big one. He thought if he shared it, maybe Josiah would hang out with him more. When he reached the entrance to Josiah's chamber, he pressed his ear against the wainscoting to make sure his cousin was alone. Hearing nothing, he eased the panel open. Josiah did not notice him because he was perched on the edge of a window seat, glaring outside. Peter could tell he was angry and almost lost his nerve, but Josiah was not nearly as scary as his father, so he brazened it out. "I can take you to see your father, if you want me to. I know a secret way." Josiah startled, going for the knife hidden on his hip. He froze when he saw Peter. "Jupiter's moon, Prince Dor, don't sneak up on people like that." Then, in the universal manner of boys, brandished his new weapon, showing off. "I could have killed you." "That is your father's dagger." Peter's eyes widened, hero worship going full throttle at the sight of the gleaming blade. "Let me hold it." Josiah gave him a reproving look and fingered the jeweled hilt. "No, you were too little." Peter scowled. "I am not. And besides,
If you want me to show you how to get to your father, you will let me see it."
10 minutes later, Josiah re-evaluated his opinion of his cousin. The sly little rascal showed him a secret passageway and led him through a labyrinth of tunnels without pausing. Peter seemed to know where he was going, while Josiah was hopelessly turned around. "Where are we?" Peter whirled on him.
"Be quiet. If my father finds out—"
The sentence hung as Peter shuddered.
"Come on,"
he said, and disappeared around a tight corner. Peter's reaction gave Josiah pause. Peter was normally fearless. He would hop on a half-broken stallion without a second thought. He thrived on mischief, always trying to recruit Josiah into some harebrained scheme they both knew would get them in trouble. But Peter never seemed to care. Grief had fine-tuned his senses, and he became aware of not only what people were saying, but how they said it. More importantly, what they meant. His last couple of visits home, Josiah felt uneasy around his uncle, who seemed to carry a vague aura of menace. Something lurked behind Uncle Korah's eyes that did not smile with the rest of his face, and Peter's fear of him was blatant. The house slept, and in the dark passage, only their steps disturbed the silence. His shoulders kept brushing the walls, and he had to duck several times. The narrow space made him claustrophobic, but it did not seem to bother Peter, so he kept his mouth shut and kept walking, not sure what he was going to find. He had never seen a dead body before, and was afraid it would look like the skeletons in the comics his friend at the academy read. If it did, he was leaving. Peter stopped outside a wooden panel that looked identical to the dozen others they already passed.
"This is it."
"How do you know?" Josiah asked, sharper than he intended.
"I'm in here all the time. I know every inch of this place."
"You're weird," Josiah said, and slid the panel open. The moment he stepped inside, he was hit with the strong smell of frankincense. Silver filigree incense urns fashioned after the Elanthian crown sat in the corners, purling grey smoke and giving the disconcerting impression that the crown was on fire. Josiah shivered. Funeral arrangements of white lilies and roses lined the walls. The cloying scent made him gag. Oil lamps mounted on silver sconces sputtered and hissed. Their blue globes cast the room in winter hues of cold mist. Gooseflesh broke out on Josiah's arms as the frigid tile chilled him through his bedroom slippers. Peter stepped inside, and Josiah braced himself, looking toward his father's body. Lying in a gilded mahogany casket lined with green silk, his father looked peaceful, merely asleep. Josiah experienced a rush of relief. It was not a skeleton. But the scene, the man, the reality, felt unreal. His mind rebelled. This could not be happening.
"Father?"
His voice cracked, and he glanced over his shoulder. Peter ignored him, walking to the door to keep watch. Josiah closed his eyes against the burning tears, took a shuddering, deep breath, and approached the body. Standing at the coffin, he whispered, "I'm so scared." Then he felt ashamed for voicing those words. His father would expect better of him. So he started again. "I promise I will make you proud. I remember everything you taught me, everything. Honor, duty, and sacrifice for my kingdom." He sniffed, fighting a rush of grief. He had to say this, had to get it out. "Above all, I will be obedient to the Iron King. I will do it, everything, I promise. I will put what I want, what I desire, aside, and rule like you. I vow it, Father." Silently sobbing, Josiah picked up Eamonn's hand. The weight of the kingdom rested on his young shoulders, and the greatest man he had ever known was dead. Harsh tears burned his eyes, and he let his father wipe them away one last time. At first, he thought the sputtering lamps were casting a blue shadow, but closer inspection turned his blood as cold as the hand he held. The long lace cuffs of his father's regal attire fell backward, revealing injuries. flesh-colored paint rubbed off on his fingers. Josiah squinted in the dimly lit tomb. This was no shadow. A vivid band of bruising marred Eamonn's strong wrists, marks of restraint and struggle. This was why they barred him from seeing the body, why they kept him away. His father had not died in a riding accident. This was murder. Blood rushed up his neck, cauterizing the grief. "Who did this to you?" Josiah croaked. He squeezed his father's fingers, then dropped them in horror as he felt the skin begin to slip away from the body. He stumbled backward and fell into Peter. "Someone's coming," Peter hissed. With the strength born of terror, Peter dragged Josiah through the hidden entrance a scant second before the door opened. Separated from the tomb by a thin panel, they dared not move. Ominous footsteps paced the stone tile, echoing like a death march. Korah's low voice snaked through the panel. "My perfect brother, Eamonn. You have no idea how tiresome that always was." The young princes exchanged a look of surprise. While the brothers had often disagreed, everyone thought they were close. "You are not a saint. It is a farce, a pretext, I should know." A smile lurked behind his words, an odd pride. "But I am far better at it than you. I will say you fooled everyone, yet I saw through you. The difference is, you never saw through me. I did not let you." His voice sounded like a lover's caress. "Not until the end.